Everyone knows that Firecrawl is great for scraping and crawling the web with agents, but very few people know about its amazing search feature that searches the web and returns contents with its results and not just links. So to show it off, instead of comparing it to the search tools that come with your agent harness, which I've already done, I'm going to push the limits of the Firecrawl search feature by rebuilding the popular research skill last 30 days from scratch using Firecrawl search. So hit subscribe and let's see if it can actually be done. If you've never heard of Last 30 Days, it's a popular skill by Matt Van Horn that searches sites like Reddit, X, YouTube, and more, and uses community quotes as well as engagement numbers to write a grounded summary. But you may be wondering how this skill gets information like tweets behind a gated login page, which I'll explain a bit later. But under the hood, when the user runs the skill with a specific topic, it kicks off a series of events that by default start off using your agent harness's web search tool, unless you provide a Brave or Perplexity API key, in which case it will use those instead. And it uses this to run a pre-search to find out what platforms will contain information about the specified topic. After that, it generates subqueries that get passed to a Python engine, which gets data from the specified sources using HTTP requests. Then after it gets this data, it normalizes dedupes and does relevance scoring using BM25 before giving it back to the main model to write a grounded summary. It's honestly a really impressive skill. And if you're wondering how it's able to get all this data from social media, well, I know for X, it uses your browser auth token in the cookies to make HTTP requests. Although it does ask your permission before doing so, I still kind of feel uncomfortable about it. Anyway, the whole codebase is roughly 6,000 lines of Python and over 85 different modules. But I think most of the core part of Last 30 Days can be rewritten completely with Firecrawl search. Let me show you. So the plan is to make this as simple as possible for you, the viewer, to understand and a user to install. Hence, we have this very simple project setup, scaffolded pretty much with basic bun, and I want the whole thing to work with the Firecrawl CLI, but using npx or bunx so the user has nothing to install. Right now, most of the code is in a scripts directory, and there's not much going on in here either, apart from an index and a Firecrawl file. And at this stage, I just want to show you how searching will work. So not scraping, just searching and showing the results. So the index file takes a topic from the user as an argument, which could be anything, and then passes the topic as an argument to a web search function, which simply runs the Firecrawl CLI with a sub-argument of search, passing in the topic and limiting the results to just 5 URLs, but returning JSON for now so that I get the URL, the title, description, and the position. So this starts the CLI as a child process. Then the results are passed before being put into this format. So if we run the script with a topic of AI coding, we can see we have the title, URL, and a description of what the page contains from 5 different pages. And this all worked without me needing to provide a Firecrawl API key. Now, of course, this isn't enough information to replicate the Last 30 Days skill. And of course, a user isn't going to run this every time they want information. So let's package this into a skill so that it can be run inside Claude Code. So now I've added a skills MD file with an optional Firecrawl env key. And all this file does, well, mostly what it does is it runs the index.ts file with a topic provided by the user, and when it gets these results, it does a basic summary. I've also added a few extra flags to the Firecrawl CLI search, first to scrape the contents of the pages it searches, then to use Markdown as the scrape format, and also to only scrape the main content, meaning it's going to exclude headers and footers. So if I run this outside of an agent harness, we can see again Firecrawl returns the title, the URL, but down here, it's got way more information about each page. So if I symlink this skill to its location inside my Claude skills directory, this means Claude will be able to read the skill, and then I can give it OpenAI as a topic. And if we run this skill, it runs the index.ts file with the topic. And we can see it gives me a brief summary of everything related to OpenAI. Now, this already is a very impressive research tool that I could use as is and find useful. But there are things we can do to take it further, like adding a recency value in days and also adding specific sources. So now we've updated the skill to not only support Firecrawl search, but also run Hacker News and GitHub. And you'll also notice it runs all these searches in parallel before giving the results to the agent to summarize, which I'll show you how to do a bit later. But for now, let's look at how we've added these sources. So here is the Hacker News search function, which first takes the day argument from the script and then runs the Hacker News Algolia API, adding the search params to get this specific result, and then returns an array of objects in this format to match the other sources. And if we look at the GitHub source, we can see it's done in a similar way. Here we're also passing the date from the user and then using the GitHub search API with some query params to get the correct results based on the topic, and again returning an array of objects in this format, making sure to add a signal which contains the star count of a specific repo, as well as the date it was pushed. We also do the same for Hacker News, which is the points and comments count. The only thing we change in the Firecrawl search is the addition of time-based search, which takes the argument in days and turns it into a TBS value. And finally, in the index file, we add the logic to support the number of days, and then run all three searches in parallel before flattening the results. So now if I do a new search for Anthropic and specify in the last 7 days, we can see it passes the topic and updates the days flag. And now that it's done, we can see we get recent news about Anthropic, so in the last 7 days, and we even get the citation numbers which reference the articles that the agent used to get its summary. From here, we can continue to improve the skill by adding more information on how to ground the summary, or we can increase the list of sources. So as you just saw, the Firecrawl search feature is incredibly powerful and can be used for free without an API key. Now, what I built in this demo is by no means a replacement for the last 30 days skill, which I think is still very good, and it's something I use personally to do research. The demo I created is just a cool way to show off the Firecrawl search feature, and I did it to give you some ideas of what you can build with it. In fact, if you do plan on signing up to Firecrawl, you can use the code FirecrawlYT to get 500 extra credits. And if you ever need a quick refresher on the Firecrawl search feature, then you can check out this video, which goes through it in under 3 minutes.